Ben, I know you're busy this time of year, so I appreciate you making some time for us. You look at Arkansas relative to some of the other surrounding states to when betting here was legalized. Why do you think it took so long to pass, and are you surprised that we're finally getting to this point?
Yeah, it's certainly been a few years, right, for getting mobile betting in Arkansas, and launched up recently, and is kind of going to have some more outlets here in the coming weeks that'll offer mobile sports betting. I think some of it, you might have general concerns among legislators or other key stakeholders about the impact of widespread betting. So there's maybe more willingness to have it just in casinos rather than mobile betting, which certainly makes it more widespread across the state if that's legalized. So I think that's some of the concern. I also think in Arkansas, there was a desire to make sure that if there was mobile betting, that the Arkansas casinos were the ones to benefit from that, and that it wasn't just maybe a national operator coming in, taking a lot of the revenue and stealing some foot traffic from casinos, things like that. So I think that was definitely a key role, and I know there are people in Arkansas who wish maybe it had gone a little bit faster, but seems like people in the state are generally pleased in terms of the key stakeholders with what they came up with to legalize mobile betting.
Do you think at some point in time, to that kind of point you just posed, that we'll see a FanDuel, we'll see a DraftKings, we'll see a BetMGM, or is it going to be strictly Arkansas casinos here in the state?
Yeah, so if you're a BetMGM or a DraftKings or a FanDuel, you can come into Arkansas, but you have to partner with one of the existing casinos, and there's a revenue-sharing model, which is unique to Arkansas, where 51% of the revenue has to go to the casino, which is kind of drastically different than other states. And I think the major national operators, BetMGM, DraftKings, FanDuel, have kind of spoken up against that. And my guess is they keep that revenue-sharing rule. It's just going to be those casinos kind of coming up with their own in-house options, or I know Betley's working with Southland Casino. So things like that rather than the major national players. And it kind of remains to be seen if those, Arkansas casinos can kind of come up with mobile options that are on par and match the level of a BetMGM or a FanDuel.
Straighten this up for me, because I've seen it written both ways. Is it 51% of profits or 51% of revenues? Because anyone operating a business knows that's a vastly different number most times.
Yeah, I believe it's the revenue, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's a revenue-sharing rule there. So certainly one that I think the sports folks are a little concerned about. But I guess if you're the Arkansas casinos, I think you're pretty pleased with how that all turned out.
So do you think Arkansas is going to be a place where, if you're in southern Missouri listening this morning near Branson, or you're in Oklahoma or a neighboring state, that we've heard and read stories about people crossing the bridge to get across the Mississippi to place a bet on their phone? Will Arkansas become a place where people cross the bridge or come to our state or make plans to be here so they can get their wager online?
I think potentially. I think some of it depends on exactly how those mobile options look. Like, I know some people have started using Betley, and I think I've been pretty excited about that. I also know they have some kind of unique payment and deposit withdrawal methods that I think some people have been a little bit not spooked by, but maybe frustrated with. It seems like it can be a little bit more cumbersome than some might like. So that certainly plays a role in it. I know Saracen Casino is planning to get some stuff going, but they've maybe been a little slower than they originally expected with some payment processing approvals and things like that on the technical side. So yes and no, because I think there's still going to be a large amount of people that are going to use illegal offshore markets and illegal apps to place their bets just because they don't want to travel, or if they determine that the options in Arkansas aren't worth the travel, then they might decide to keep using illegal options. So I imagine some people will certainly cross and start doing that, but it kind of depends a little bit on what Betley and Saracen and all the different casinos can come up with that approve and are accepted by customers.
We're chatting with Bannett Conlin. Sportshandle.com is where you can find out more what Bennett's got going on. Considering the SEC and the rise in basketball in this conference, we know how big March Madness is and an event it is right now. How big is it to have mobile sports wagering legalized right now for March Madness in Arkansas?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. It's obviously a major sporting event, a major college sporting event. Arkansas fans are awesome. they're really loyal, and they do a great job supporting their various teams. So I think looking at that and looking at what the basketball team has done this year, where they've been one of the better teams in a loaded SEC, I think a lot of people in Arkansas want to bet on the Razorbacks. So that's certainly a good thing for the casinos if they're able to get it up, and kind of why I've been tracking Saracen a little bit, what they've got going with Bet Saracen, because they were hoping and were pretty confident they would be up by March Madness. I know they're kind of pushing that now, so they're certainly hoping, I would imagine, to be available for some of those Arkansas games, because that's going to be a sport that a lot of fans want to bet on in the state, and it's an event that even if Arkansas wasn't, a top seed, I think people would be interested in betting in as well. But when you add in Arkansas and what they're doing, and potentially a favorable draw to get to the Sweet 16, I think people are interested in it. I know some people also love Vermont in that spot, but Arkansas is looking pretty good, and definitely a team that I think fans want to bet on. And the SEC in general, right? They had a great year for college basketball. There are a lot of teams in the top seeds that I think people are interested in betting on.
Bennett, the big news last week that touched on gambling was Calvin Ridley. He's going to be suspended the entire 2022 season. And you do wonder, when it becoming more legal across the board, several states, if that will get into college athletics and professional athletics that we've seen it happen in some cases. Is that a concern for you on someone that covers this on a daily basis, that we're going to be entrenched within college athletics and it could affect some outcome of games with coaches and players?
I think it's something that's maybe mildly concerning if you're a bettor or a fan or whatever. I think the major concern is really the illegal apps, though. I think that's maybe more concerning, is that if someone wanted to throw a game, or they wanted to, pay a player to throw a game or something like that, it's probably easier and a better decision to do that, on an illegal app where it's less regulated and less tracked. If you're doing it on some of these legalized platforms, typically there's more regulation and more tracking involved, and that's why Calvin Ridley was caught, is because he, placed this on an app that was legalized temporarily in Florida, and they were able to have his data, and it seemed like he put in a lot of information that was, gave away his identity, which then allowed some different sites and platforms that track that to pass that along to the NFL. So I think if it's legalized, you've got more ways to track it in certain states. And if people are placing the bets, whether it's say a college player decides to bet on a game or something like that, you've got that data that's being tracked within the legalized platform. So the legalization definitely helps there. I think maybe more concerning is if you're a bettor, and there could certainly be players or things like that are maybe using illegal apps to bet and potentially impact the outcome of a game that you're completely unaware of. I think the Calvin Ridley news helps, at least in some ways, of getting this out in the forefront and knowing that, hey, like, the legalization of these different platforms can help track this and stop it from happening. So I think that can actually be a bit of a benefit.
Let all the athletes bet. Just make all their bets public. That's my take on it. Yeah, go ahead and bet on the games you're in, but you're going to let everybody know before kickoff or tip-off what you've done.
Yeah, it would certainly be interesting.
That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
It really would be. It'd be interesting too, though, if you got a player, right, who's maybe betting on their team for a few weeks. They get to week 8 and they're playing, Tom Brady and the Bucks, and they decide not to put a wager on their team. That could be interesting as well.
Yeah.
Bennett, before we let you go, tell us a little bit about who you work for at sportshandle.com. Some people are familiar with gambling. Some people are familiar with your website. But for those who aren't, tell us about sportshandle.com.
Yeah, so at SportsHandle, we do a lot of writing on kind of the legalization of sports betting and different regulations from state to state. So there's a lot of coverage of sports betting news. We definitely give some advice in terms of betting, and I know there's some stories on there, and US Bets, which is kind of a sister site, about March Madness and things like that. But most of the content you're going to see there, and there's a decent amount on Arkansas and different states, is legalization, regulation, and how that changes state to state, and how the industry is changing over time.
Hey, what are the laws in New York? So if someone's listening and they're traveling today or going to make their way to Buffalo, New York, what are the laws there about online gaming if you're headed to Buffalo to watch the Razorbacks?
Yeah, the state launched it pretty recently, so they've got a handful of different sports books that you're able to use. If you are going from Arkansas, I don't believe that Bentley is one that's in New York, so you're probably going to have to get a different mobile sports book, but they've got some of the major players are certainly involved with the DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, some of those different major players. So definitely a change of pace, I think, a little bit. If you're going from Arkansas, you got to make sure state to state that you have like the correct app that has the proper operator and things like that. But it is available. You are able to bet online in New York, which would certainly make for some bets on the Razorback.
Bennett, best of luck in this betting season of the NCAA tournament. Appreciate you giving some insight to all of our listeners. And again, best of luck betting this tournament, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
That time of year as college basketball takes center stage with the tournament finally upon us. If you're looking to wager this year, BetOnline is the #1 spot for all your updated odds and info, along with great contests, including the bracket contest, where you can have a chance to take home the top prize. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE to get started. That's BLEAV. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Bet online, where the game starts.